How did this guy win hundreds of thousands of dollars in a small poker cash game in Northern California? This is Stone's Gambling Hall, and this is the real Stone's Gambling Hall for your reference. And this is Mike Postle. See, Mike Postle had a problem. He really loved to gamble. This is him in real life for your reference. But he wasn't that good, and the games that he was playing in weren't that big. So Mike found a way to win, and to win big. Let me tell you how he won all that money. September 21st, 2019. I picked up Matt Berkey and Christian Soto from the airport in Oakland. They flew into a private airport to avoid TSA due to the large sum of cash they were carrying. I didn't ask any questions. I just popped the trunk of my car, and in flew a large leather duffel bag filled with more money than any Stones player had seen in a while, ready to be played at the biggest cash game Stones Live Poker had ever seen. This was going to be my very last Veronica and Friends game. I hosted a private cash game for years at Stone's Gambling Hall. The game had gotten too wild, too much of a party, and way too big for my bankroll. Since moving to the Bay Area, I was tired of the drive to Sacramento, and the partying after every single game was wearing on me. I asked my friend Anthony, better known as 4Bet Jesus in Sacramento, to host the game for me. This is an actual picture of Anthony playing on Stones Live Poker. He was a high-stakes pro and wanted to make the game bigger and wanted to bring in players with way more money. I was going to show up to support Anthony and let my regulars know that he was going to be hosting the game from now on. I was going to do commentary for the very last time to support Anthony in this endeavor. This is why I picked up Matt Berkey. He was the big-name poker player brought in to entice the whales. And in a lot of aspects, Berkey was considered a whale. He had a loose, aggressive style that was unconventional to an untrained eye. He looked really spewy. This was going to be the biggest cash game that Stones Live had on the live stream, with the biggest player in poker. But there was no promotion. I was surprised that not much excitement surrounded the game. There was more to that than I knew at the time, and we'll get back to that a little bit later. Christian Soto, who was with Solve for Why at the time, an online poker training site owned by Matt Berkey, decided to jump in the booth because he didn't have a seat in the game initially. He took on the majority of the commentary, and I was able to just watch the stream and comment occasionally. There was one more person in the booth with us that night. His name was Justin Kelly, aka Train.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what is going on? Welcome to a very special edition of Stones Live. Justin Kelly along with the one and only Christian Soto in the house.
Let's go, man.
Hi, man, what's going on? Guys, so for those of you who don't know, I don't even know. This game, every 10 minutes, apparently just gets a higher limit. What are we playing, 10, 25, 50, 1 million or something?
10, 25, 50. While I was out there, they were like, oh, let's do some bomb pots. Let's kick it up a little bit more. And I was like, whoa, this is what we signed up for.
There is absolutely no limit to this game, any way, shape, or form. We got the one and only Mr. Berkey in the house, Berkinator, coming at you. It's going to be sick.
Yeah,
it's going to be sick.
Yeah, he's not here to fold.
Yeah, he's not here to fold. What is on his to-do list? Not fold.
Not fold, yeah.
Let's backtrack a little bit. I was not the person who invited Matt Berkey and Christian Soto to this game. That was actually set up by another commentator at Stones Live Poker. I picked them up at the airport because it was on my way. At that point, I was actually worried that Mike Postle had been cheating for over a year. And on the drive from the airport to Stone's Gambling Hall, I talked to Matt and Christian about Mike and asked them if they had any thoughts about his playing style, just to see if they knew anything. I had spoken to many people about the potential of Mike cheating. I kept being told that I don't have enough information, that I don't understand how Mike Postle plays, that I could potentially ruin a man's reputation, and so I never went public with anything. Not yet. I confided in Bart Hansen about it. We became friends, because we ended up working together and he was a commentator on Live at the Bike. Bart encouraged me to talk to Stone's management about it. So in March of 2018, I spoke with Justin Caritis. We called him JFK. He was the tournament director at Stone's, and he was also the Stone's Live Poker manager. I had spoken to him over 6 months ago with my concerns over Mike potentially cheating. And in this moment, in this exact game, with Matt Berkey at the table, I knew that nothing was being done. There was one more very important person in the game that night, and that was Marley Sprague, formerly known as Marley Cardero during that time. After watching Mike cheat for almost a year and a half, and then sitting there in this game, watching him cheat what felt like for hours, I finally snapped. He folded a hand against Marley, and to me it seemed so obvious that he knew what she had, because he typically wouldn't have folded that hand. And that's when I decided to say, it just doesn't make sense. I thought JFK must have been completely incompetent and unable to see that this man was actually cheating. There's a video clip of me on YouTube that shows the moment where I had finally realized that I needed to do something about it. It's titled, Last Stone's Broadcast for Me, and you can hear me say, it's like he knows. It's weird. And you can hear Justin Kelly just talking over me and ignoring all of my comments.
He's digging it, but he also looks slightly constipated. And he mucks. This is what I'm talking about, people. Postle takes the weirdest lines and gets people to lay down huge hands all the time, but when he has top pair and a straight draw, he's able to just lay down against the nut. Postle is just like a freak. He's just a freak of nature,
it's like
man.
He knows.
He's just a freak.
Just doesn't make sense.
In like the best way. Like I say freak with love. Like maybe with a PH if that's what matters, but like I'm just saying. That's insane. And he's also got the highest effing VPIP.
Yeah.
Welcome to Stones, baby. Welcome to the game of Postle. Insane. Insane.
It doesn't make sense. It's weird.
Absolute insanity, guys. So it looks like Chin over here in the hijack is going to pop it up to 150.
See, the one thing about Postle is he's got this high VPIP, but it's not like, it's not, it doesn't reflect on post-flop play at all.
True.
Like, he's super loose pre. And then post-flop, he's just like, completely tightens up and changes.
By the way, wow, I caught you.
To this day, I'm not 100% convinced that Justin Kelly knew, but he sure acted like he did. I was gaslit that entire year. July 2014, the start of Stone's Live. I hadn't been playing poker since I left Las Vegas in 2012, and I was craving it. I remember going to Thunder Valley, and I really loved their poker room. But at that time, the poker room was not closed off, and there was a ton of cigarette smoke. I heard that there was a new card room opening up that was non-smoking with no slot machines. I remember going to play at Stone's shortly after it opened, and I thought the room was so lovely and posh. It had 17 tables of Pai-Gow and blackjack and other card games, and it had a closed-off poker room with 17 more tables. It was just big enough to hold a fairly large tournament, but it was still small enough where you could get to know people who worked there, and everyone sort of became family. Stone's had a restaurant on site that was open 24 hours a day, and I just thought I was in the best poker room I had ever seen, based off of the service and the food. And to be honest with you, I still really miss that place. That's enough Stone's promotion for now. Let's talk about the origin of Stone's Live Poker. I became friends with a guy named Roger Bailey. He was trying to start a poker tour called Two Pair Poker. Roger was fairly successful at getting the tour started and brought a couple of poker tournaments to Thunder Valley. I have to say Roger was pretty passionate about poker and his business, and he was the reason why Stone's Live Poker started. But he was kind of weak with how slimy he was. He did portray himself as this uber-conservative guy and strong Christian, but, he kind of acted the opposite of that. And he was a bit of a degenerate gambler, aren't we all? And sometimes a drunk. Before things got bad between me and Roger and I were kind of friends. He was talking about starting a live stream and having it sort of be like Live at the Bike, which is, by the way, a great live stream. I used to watch it religiously in the mid-2000s and have played on it and done commentary. I remember him telling me that he had a special RFID table and he wanted to start this live stream in Sacramento, and I thought it was an amazing idea. I thought Northern California had a big enough poker scene that we could have our own live stream. I remember trying to convince him to let me do commentary and that he could have me in the booth with a professional poker player, and I'd provide some sort of entertainment and color commentary, and the professional poker player could talk more strategy. He finally bought the idea and asked me to find a co-host. Jake Rosensteel and I had recently become friends. We met at Thunder Valley during a tournament series, and I thought he was really bright and interested in poker enough that the two of us could have some decent conversations. Jake was hesitant at first. I relentlessly tried to convince him that we'd make a great team. I hope he's not mad at me for sharing this, but I know at the time Jake was insecure about what he deemed to be some sort of speech impediment. I honestly didn't hear it, and when he talked about poker, it's almost as though whatever speech impediment he did have didn't exist. After a bit of convincing, he finally agreed to do it, and I couldn't have been more excited. When the whole thing started, it looked like it was done in someone's basement. Our cameras were so cheap and couldn't zoom. The sound, the technical booth, and the commentary booth were made out of plexiglass that occasionally tipped over when some drunk person accidentally tripped and would fall into the booth. Some people thought they were funny and they'd lift up their shirts and flash their nipples, or they did stupid dances to distract us. There was absolutely zero security, and anybody could go into the commentary booth and the technical booth. Players would often walk into the technical booth and ask how they did and watch their hands while there was live footage being played in the background. In most casinos and card rooms, there are public lists for poker games, but in those days, it was more of a private game run by Roger and overseen by Stones. Roger was allegedly being paid some sort of rake per hour for the live stream game. If the live stream was 3 hours and the game lasted 10 hours, he'd be paid for 10 hours of rake or whatever the deal was with the casino. Once the live stream was up and running, it wasn't long before Roger started power tripping. He would often want to meet with me and Jake before the live stream and ask me what I would do if he told me that I couldn't talk about poker at all. And I remember just looking at him and being so confused with that question. I'm on a poker TV show. Why would I not talk about poker? It felt like he wanted to just push the threshold of how much power he had over situations. He would drink excessively and hang out with different waitresses and women in the poker room. One day when Jake and I had just finished in the booth, Roger was of course drunk, and he came into the booth and got in my face. I could smell alcohol in his breath. He asked me, "How much would it cost?" Everybody has a price. I looked at Jake in shock and I pushed Roger and I told him to shut up and I left. After that incident, I went to JFK. I told him that he made me uncomfortable in the booth, and I told him he was power tripping on me, trying to tell me not to talk about poker when I'm about to go live on a poker live stream. Roger slowly buried himself with his bad behavior, as did every degenerate gambling drunk, and eventually Stones bought him out and asked him to leave. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've shared the origin of Stones Live Poker. In part 2, we're going to be doing a deep dive into Justin Caritis, the tournament director at Stones Gambling Hall and the manager of Stones Live Poker, and how he completely took over the entire operation.